Hey everybody, welcome to More. We're always glad you join us. Thanks for hanging out with us, whether that's by yourself or with your group. We are excited about the series we're in and these more opportunities you have, not to stay in the book of Revelation every week, but to take that big statement we heard in chapter 1, and we'll hear again by the time we get to the end of the book, where Jesus declares, I am the Alpha and the Omega, those Greek letters meaning the beginning and the end. And really by saying that, what he is saying is he is the totality of everything that we could possibly need, and then so much more. And so we took that idea of that I am statement, that final I am statement Jesus made, and we've been in these weeks and more looking at the I am statements that are outlined for us by John in his gospel account. And why are we doing that? Because when we say he's the beginning and the end, the totality of everything, how does that play out? What does that look like? And so we believe that these statements Jesus made in the Gospel of John really give us an idea of exactly what that means when he is everything, the beginning, the end, and everything in between, because these statements really reveal the character and the mission and the purpose that Jesus came to fulfill for us, to give us life. And today, we are going to be in John's Gospel again, looking at another one of those statements in John chapter 10. Now, I want to say this up front because there are actually two I am statements here in chapter 10, and in many ways, they're kind of connected together. They at least are in the same realm because of the content and the illustration that Jesus gives us in chapter 10, along with the two I am statements. So this week we're going to look at one, and then next week we'll look at the other from this same chapter, and you'll see how they're together. This first one really is more about function. What did Jesus do? What does he do for us? What did he provide for us? And he's going to do that by giving us this I am statement. John chapter 10, and let me also say this before I read this text. You would be well to read all the way through John chapter 10, because there's so much in John chapter 10 that really gives the full context and understanding of these two particular I am statements because of all that he says there. Everything from the two statements themselves to the unity that he and the Father have being one, and how all of that works for us and helps us on our life journey, our faith journey as well. So today we're going to be in John chapter 10, and I'm going to begin reading in verse number 7. And in verse number 7 it says, so Jesus again said to them, he's talking to this group, and he says, truly, truly, I say to you, and here's the I am statement, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. So there's our statement. I am the door. You may be reading from another translation where it says gate or the gate or something along those lines, but the image is very clear to us. Now, I told you that this first I am statement is all about function. And when you think about a door, you kind of understand the function of a door. What does a door do? Well, several things a door allows or doesn't allow, and those are really the heart of the message of this statement, I am the door that Jesus makes. First of all, the use of a door is to allow you to gain entry into something, a room, a building, and it gives you a way in. And so a door is useful in that regard. A door also has the capacity to keep you safe inside. You close the door, and sadly in our culture, we usually lock those doors maybe multiple times to keep you safe inside those doors. So the door can allow you in, the door can keep you safe once you are in, and then the third thing is maybe as important as the other two, and that is it can keep someone or anything out. Something that maybe is trying to get in to harm you or your family or whatever it may be. A door is used to keep those people who might come and bring harm or inflict harm out. So how does that apply to Jesus? This I am statement where he calls himself, I am the door. And specifically in verse number 7, where he says, I am the door of the sheep. Now, I would just say for you to just kind of mark that in your mind, because next week we'll certainly look at that idea of the door and sheep and how that works. But let me give you the picture here, because Jesus is giving them a picture that would have been very, very familiar to them, something that they would have known because of the culture they lived in that day. Israel, like many of the people in that region, were an agricultural community. They relied on the land to provide for them the resources they needed to survive. And one of the livestock resources that was important to Israel in this day, and in many ways is still important there today, was that of the sheep and herds of sheep. One of the professions that we read throughout scriptures is that of shepherds. And these shepherds were responsible for the flocks, whether they owned them or worked for the owners of them. They bore responsibility for the safety and well-being. Why? Because the sheep were important. They were valuable. They were the livelihood of that owner, that family that owned those sheep. And so these shepherds took care of them. Jesus talks about being specifically something that took care of the sheep in those three ways we talked about, as an entryway, as a protection, and as keeping out those who would harm them. Sheep were herded up in the evening in the dark where there was no lights or other things into places that they could be protected from wild animals and robbers and thieves that you read about throughout chapter 10. Sometimes that was a cave. They would gather them up inside of a cave and protect them in there. Other times they would gather up brambles and other brush and wood and create some sort of an enclosure for them. And then still other times they would even do that with stones. If it was in a particular area they stayed in often, and they would build these structures, usually round in nature, with only one entryway into it. And then when the evening would come and darkness would fall, the shepherd himself would lay down in front of that entryway, blocking the sheep from getting out, but also keeping them in because they could go in through that entrance, and then for sure protecting them from anything that would want to come in to harm them. And so I just want to point out very quickly, and then allow the questions to follow to lead your discussion time to see how that works. Jesus said, I say to you, I'm the door of the sheep. He is the only way to enter into the family of God. If you want to be a follower of Jesus, you have to come in through him, the door. He is the only entryway in. Just a few chapters from now in John chapter 14, Jesus has this incredible conversation in the upper room about a place being prepared, a place for people to go, eternal life, heaven ultimately. And in that, one of the disciples, Thomas, says to Jesus very candidly, he says, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't know this way. And of course, Jesus makes this famous statement in John 14:6, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. And then he gives this disclaimer, no one can come to the Father except by me or through me. Why? Because he declared, I am the door of the sheep. It was the only way in for the sheep, and he is the only way in for us to come into the family of God. He is the only means of entry. And not only that, but I would say this, Jesus came to give, not steal from his family. Look again at verse 8. All who came before me are thieves and robbers. They were false. They could not do what I do. They were not the door, essentially, but the sheep did not listen to them. They were not willing to go. They didn't follow them. So Jesus said that all who came before came to steal or rob from them. And so in John 8, he speaks of this, telling us that he is the one who can guarantee to give to us, not steal from us, not take from us. These false teachers that had corrupted and led people astray were no longer in the way now because he was the only way. And that is the ministry of Jesus. Jesus didn't come to take away. Jesus came to give. Jesus came to serve, not to be served. Jesus came to protect and provide, not to take away from. And then lastly, it reminds us that Jesus himself demonstrates that he is the true Messiah. Verse 9, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be, get this, saved and will go in and out and find pasture. Every heart, every person, I'm sure, understands this idea of being rescued. We see the despair of our world. We see the chaos that we live in, and we wonder who can save us from this all. And Jesus says to us very clearly here, I am the door. If you enter by me, if you come through this door, you will be saved. That is such an incredible promise, isn't it? That is such an important promise for us today, because while many people think there are all these different options of how we find security and how we find peace in life and how we find purpose in life, Jesus says, no, all of those are false. I am the door. He is the true Messiah. Well, those three things lead us then to understand this, that if we are going to have life and we're going to have a life that's full of meaning and purpose, then it must be found only in Jesus. John 10 verse 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. There is an enormous peace that is settled there. When Jesus talks about giving us abundant life, he's telling us that he offers us new life in him. And this new life is far better than they or we could have ever expected to be. Abundant life that's marked by eternal life, by an unbreakable relationship with him. And those who have this relationship and are in this relationship find joy no matter what their circumstances are, hope even in the midst of trial, and help whenever they cry out to him for it. So I am the door is this incredible revealing statement of how Jesus really is the totality of all that we need. If we need to find entryway in, Jesus is the entryway. If we need to find protection, he's the one who provides that. If we need to find salvation, he is our salvation. And he is the one that gives us this full, meaningful, beautiful life. Check out the questions that follow, and we'll stay right here in chapter 10 for next week of more as we look at another I am statement. We'll see you then.